Hello, and welcome to the recording of the Repack for Success presentation. If you have a child in CMS and you are a parent or caretaker looking to support them, you are in the right place. This presentation is brought to you by the CMS Department of Family and Community Engagement and Primary Focus. My name is Natalie, founder of Primary Focus. Let's go ahead and dive in. We'll talk about a few things during this presentation. We'll talk about the shift to the middle of the school year, building school communication, independence, helpful home routines, keeping up with attendance, and more than that too. If you have questions at the end of this presentation, I always want to be a resource to you. You can send an email to hello@primaryfocus.tv. A little bit about me. My name is Natalie Parmenter. I'm founder of Primary Focus, the Parent's Guide to Elementary School. I work with parents to help them understand our school system, know what's going on, and how they can best support their kids. Everything from picking out the right school program to your child to supporting them when math starts to get difficult. I taught in CMS for a very long time. This is a picture of me on my last day teaching. Those are my baby kindergartners. I live in Charlotte with my husband, Mike. And I said I spent most of my career teaching in CMS. I did spend 2 years teaching internationally in Vietnam. It was a very, very special experience. I went back a few years ago and I visited my first graders, who in this picture were 8th and 9th graders. Just a really special experience to see how much they had grown, especially because they're living in a different country and, seeing what teenagers are like across the world. I said keep in touch with me. Primary Focus is all about supporting parents and caretakers. So you can find me on YouTube at Primary Focus, Instagram at Primary Focus, and you can always shoot me an email, hello@primaryfocus.tv. Any questions that you have, or if you just want to keep in touch, I'm here for you. Before we really get into it, I start every workshop that I do reminding people that not all advice is for you. We live in a world where we are inundated with advice at all times. I feel like I can't even open up my phone to check my social media without getting unsolicited advice sent to me. So if I say something in this presentation that doesn't make sense for your family, it doesn't land quite right, that means it probably wasn't advice for you. So I want to remind you, you know what you're doing. I think sometimes when it comes to communicating with schools, it can feel like the school is telling you everything to do and you don't get a say in it. And I really want to reframe your understanding here because you are a very important part of this education team, of the school, of the family, supporting your child together. You have been making decisions for your baby since most of you probably before they were even born or before they even came into your life. So don't ever let anyone take that from you. You absolutely know what you're doing. And with that, let me give you a ton of advice and resources to support your kiddo in school. Now, this shift to the middle of the year is a really important time. The beginning of the year, if you look at my chart here, we're stretching from August to December. That is an enormous amount of time. This is the beginning of the school year, though. So for younger children, we're looking at adjusting to routines. For older kids, we're looking at a lot of review. And, kids have to take time to settle in and restart when we come back from the summer. We also see that I think the beginning of the year it's kind of start and stop. There's a lot of holidays snuck in there. There's a lot of teacher work days, and it feels like a slower start to the year. After winter break, we get thrown into the middle of the year, which is January, February, March. This is the most important time of the year. This is when the learning crams in. This is the biggest uninterrupted amount of time of school that we have, unless the weather gets in the way. And this is really when the magic happens. If you know your child is struggling in school, this is the time to put the pedal to the metal, and you can make major changes in your child's life. You can make major changes in difficulties that they're having in school in January, February, and March. So this is the time of year where I feel like sometimes it is the slow march and it is uncomfortable and kids are sick and maybe it's snowing, but this is also the time when it gets really serious. So I'd really have you tune in this time of year. If your child is older, middle school and high school, they're probably also starting new classes this time of year. A lot of times we see the more advanced things happening in the second half of the year. So I would tune in, make sure that you know what their teachers need, look over those syllabuses. At the end of the year, April, May, June, I feel like, kids come back from spring break, they have spring fever sometimes, they might be getting, a little bit less motivated. We're starting to look at end of year testing starting in May. In June, we really only go for a week or two in June, and there's a lot of end of year celebrations, graduations, field day, all of those fun things happening. So this is the middle of the year, January, February, March, that I need you to really double down, tune in, because this is when the real learning, the real magic, and the real change will happen for your kiddo. So with that, school communication is going to be one of the most important things that you can do to support your child. So if you don't check in with your child's teacher or teachers already, I encourage you to try doing a monthly teacher check-in. Now, I say monthly, it might be 6 weeks. You can kind of feel out when this makes sense to do. But what I would recommend about once a month is reach out to the teacher, maybe on Parent Square, on an email, and ask them these 2 questions. Where is my child excelling? Where does my child need to grow? And then at the end of the month, I want you to say to them, last month you told me this. How is my child performing now? Any improvements? Any ways I can support them? This is how you prevent yourself from getting surprised on a progress report or on the report card. This is how you prevent yourself from getting whiplash and saying like, gosh, I thought they were doing okay, and now I realize that they're not doing okay. If you can do this, you can fix little problems very quickly. The longer a child has been struggling in a certain subject, or the longer they've maybe been having social issues in school, the harder it is to fix it. But if you are paying attention once a month and you get your tasks of things that you can support your child with, you can turn something that's a small problem, a small misunderstanding, into a distant memory instead of having these issues go on and on for months at a time. We don't want these gaps in learning or these gaps in social issues to keep growing. We want to be able to pounce on them. So take a picture of this slide, take a screenshot, copy and paste it, and fill in that blank. This is a great way to help communicate and understand what your child needs. After you understand what they need, you need to make intentional time to work on it. So, this could be every single night during homework time. It could be check-in and conversations, but make sure that you actually take this advice and you do something about it. You can always ask your child's teacher for resources to support you. I will share some great resources at the end of this presentation as well, that will help you out with homework time and things. I highly recommend that you're reading any school communication teacher newsletters. Now, this will depend on the cadence, how often it comes from your school, but at least once a week, you should be sitting down for 10-15 minutes, looking at information that came in from the teacher and from the school. And a lot of times, this will make your life so much easier. You won't be wondering, you won't get the last minute project or the last minute spirit day that you didn't know about. A lot of times they are communicating these things in these newsletters. So do yourself a favor and take time every week to do this, because it can be really, really helpful to, if you're trusting your child to share everything with you, to make sure that you're getting every last piece of information. If school communication is something that you feel anxious about sometimes, or it feels hard to put the email together to ask the questions, I have a resource. These are 4 easy emails to send to your child's teacher. These are copy and paste, fill in the blank emails that speak the language of teachers. I know sometimes when there's a problem, you can feel like it might take you 45 minutes to write out what happened. You're on ChatGPT, you're trying to figure out how to say it. No more of that. These are templates that will help you. So 1 is for an academic concern, 2 are about incidents that might have happened at school, and then the 4th is about if your child gets in trouble and you're trying to understand what happened and how to best support them. So this QR code will take you to those communication points, and I hope they help you. So let's talk about building independence with your child. Building independence is a huge gift that you can give your child, and something that teachers are focusing on from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade. So I want to walk you through how this grows over time. And you can think about where your child has come from, how they're performing now, and where they're going to be by the time they end high school. All of the point of this is age-appropriate independence, asking kids to do things that they should be able to be capable of without overloading them, and teaching them to advocate for themselves in the classroom. It is so important to practice these skills when they're young, because once they turn 18, they're going to have to advocate for themselves at work or in their relationships and in their life. And it is a really, really hard thing to do, to ask for help and also understand when you need help and when maybe you're not fitting in the way that you need to, or you're not understanding what's going on. So my advice to you is, if you're working on independence, is to tell the teacher that you are working on this and say like, hey, we're working on independence. They're supposed to come tell you this, but I want to tell you this in case they forget, or maybe they need a nudge. Teachers love to hear this. And behind the scenes all the time, I had parents telling me like, hey, they're supposed to come ask you about this today. I hope that they do. And if they don't, it would help me as a teacher understand, okay, well, here's how I can step in. And I'll also say, with this practice of independence, let them fail. Let your child fail. Let them forget their homework. Let them forget their folder. Let them not study for the test if they're not taking it seriously, and see what happens with it. We have to let them fail as children, because this is where the learning happens. So enough of my preamble here. Let's talk about what this looks like: child-led communication and independence. Pre-K to second grade, we're thinking about managing materials. We're thinking about bringing that folder to and from school. A lot of teachers have a daily folder, and it is more than just bringing stuff home to show you. It is about the responsibility of this folder and bringing it to and from school every day. So even if sometimes the folder is filled with worksheets that you don't think that they need, or you don't understand why it was sent home, it's not always about the worksheet. It is about the symbol of that folder and the responsibility. Asking for help from their teacher, and communicating basic feelings. This is all about becoming a little person, being away from your main caretaker, and being able to stick up for yourself a little bit. They're not perfect at it. It's a hard skill to do, but the more that they practice these things, the better. Now, 3rd to 5th grade, this turns into sharing concerns with a teacher, telling their family important dates. So it's not just bringing the folder back and forth anymore. It's saying, hey, we have a field trip coming up and I've got a form to show you about it. Them taking ownership of what's in that folder. Managing homework due dates. We might start to see projects or homeworks due, only once a week and not every day. And starting to understand their grades. Now that your child is in 3rd to 5th grade, they understand percentages, they understand larger numbers. You tell a 1st grader that they got an 80 on their test, they don't truly know what that means. They need help. But a 3rd grader probably can start to understand what getting an 80 means. How does this grow into middle school? In middle school, we are starting to see we're starting to see students emailing their teachers, tracking assignments across classes, advocating for help before they fall behind, explaining grades and expectations to their family, and managing long-term projects. So it starts to shift where the middle schooler is responsible for a lot of this communication. And parents, this is why I say you need to make sure you're spending time once a week reading any school communication in the background, because the student's supposed to bring it to you. If you are concerned about how your child's communicating, you can always ask them to maybe CC their teacher, or CC you on emails to the teacher. But you really want to put it more on the student. And then you can just quietly in the background double check any information, reach out and say, sorry, do I have this right? To make sure you know what's going on. In high school, you're starting to see not just communication with teachers, but counselors as well too. They're managing deadlines independently. They might be working on projects that, they have weeks or even months to work on them. We're reflecting on grades and we're setting goals now. It's not just about, I want to do well in math. Maybe it's starting to think about their entire GPA, that long-term goal of, what does having a good GPA add up to? Is that something important for them? Problem solving academic challenges, and preparing generally just for college and work expectations. And this is when we really start to let them pilot and feel like what it's like to be a little adult. We want to be there for them, but You will probably be talking to their teachers a lot less in high school and have a lot more communication where your child is going back and forth to the family. If you can give them this independence, you're going to see a lot less bickering. And when your child knows that they are trusted, when they are responsible for something, they are going to feel ownership over that. And it's going to have a lot less push and pull. You're not going to have to micromanage them. Now, listen, you're going to have to check in. This is harder to do than it thinks. It is a skill. But that trust can go a really, really long way with teenagers. And on that point, this is the beginning of new classes. We're coming back from the end of the quarter, new quarter starting. This is a great time to slide in, read the syllabus, read any papers that are coming home from the teacher. If you want to shoot a quick email, introduce yourself. If you know you're working on independence, say that and say, like, please, if anything's happening in class, let me know. This is a great time for you to make a great first impression as well as your child is. So I told you we'd get a little bit into some resources and things. The CMS Department of Family and Community Engagement has a beautiful website with testing and homework resources broken down by grade level. It is so incredibly organized. So you can find fourth grade literacy, fourth grade math, 12th grade testing information. All of it is on this website. So if you are just trying to understand what is expected from your child's grade, what are kids in the district doing, this is a great website to go to and very easy to navigate. If you are looking for some more either review or homework help with your child and every child in CMS has a library card already. They probably use it at school. To have them log in, it is their student ID number, and their password is either their birth year or month/day. This QR code can take you to these resources I'm about to talk about. But the library is absolutely incredible. We are very lucky in Charlotte to have such a well-funded library system. So if you haven't been to the library in a little while, I know it's very popular in the early years. I would encourage you to start going back there. They have beautiful teen sections. They have wonderful spaces. A lot of libraries have an entire room or a section that is built out just for teenagers. It's a really nice, safe place to be. They often have activities and things like that. A couple of favorites that I pulled. The first is Miss Humblebee's Academy. This is for about 3 to 6 year olds, a lot of preschool, kindergarten, maybe into first grade. The kids love it. There's a lot of challenges. It's very cute. It's free for you through the library. Transparent Language is a great program for helping with foreign languages. So whether you're learning a language yourself right now, or if your child is learning a language in school, Transparent Language is a really helpful program. And then my personal favorite, Tutor.com. Tutor.com provides free homework help and tutoring every weeknight from 3 to 11 p.m. Every Monday to Friday, 3 to 11 p.m. They can get online. A tutor is right there. They offer in English and in Spanish. But it's amazing because I know sometimes as the kids get older, the homework gets harder. It is harder to support them. You can get them on tutor.com, start getting that support, and you can stand there and do your job to make sure that something's getting done, but you don't feel like you have to be an expert on this topic for it to happen. So I highly recommend it. And all you have to do, log into the library, get it set up, and check it out together. My recommendation for tutor.com, why don't you try this on a night where it's lower pressure homework? Maybe not the night before your test, maybe a week before the test. Try it, make sure you understand how the programming works, so then you can get into a routine doing this. So moving into attendance, do you know how many unexcused absences your child can have before they're considered truant? Take your guess. If you said 10, you are correct. It is so important that we have our children in school consistently. They should be in school as often as possible. We know that life happens. It is sometimes hard to keep up with attendance. Things happen. talk about life. I know we've had a lot of snow days recently and things. We have to sometimes fight against these things. Stress can be a huge reason why kids are missing school, and germs. Oh my gosh. I know that we've had a tough cold and flu season. It can be really hard to fight against these things to get your child in school, but your overall approach should be, the point is going to school every day. If something wild happens, yes, if you are sick, let's talk about missing it. But overall, your kiddo should be in school every day, because it is the consistency that will help them build that independence. When they feel confident because they're showing up in the same place every single day, they will be able to be more independent. If they are showing up in school every day, they're going to get every single day of learning to prepare for the test, to show that they've learned something new. When kids have these breaks in school, or they are inconsistently attending school, it gets right in the way of the important development that they need. Now, I cannot really help you fight against the life things that are going to happen. I cannot help you fight against the germs. Wash your hands. But I do want to talk to you a little bit about stress, because stress is a huge reason why kids are missing school. And it is something that we, as the adults in the room, can be working on to help prevent, anticipate, and support our students so that they can go to school and feel good. So one thing that I really recommend to help with stress is to build in downtime after school. School is a really overwhelming place, and they're there all day. They've probably, had a lot of different experiences in school, the same way that when you come home from work and you sometimes just need to take a second and breathe. Our kids need that too. And so when they come home from school, if it is possible, I highly encourage you to build in a 10 to 30 minute time for them to relax and just change to the new space of what they're doing. Now, listen, I know we just talked about we're talking about life is happening. There's all sorts of things happening after school, but whenever possible, giving them that space to do that. Our brain just needs a minute to rest. I would encourage this to be a screen-free time. Yes, screens can sometimes help us relax, but they are very stimulating. I think it's something like getting outside that can make a big difference. Movement, jumping around, reading a book, laying down, just something that lets them be free and not focusing too much, or is enjoyable. I highly recommend singing in the car as a transitional time if you are maybe on the run after school. After that, it's time to transition into homework or review time. If your child has homework or studying, getting that done as soon as possible is the way to do it. One, their mind is still connected to school, so it's going to be easier. They haven't, totally moved on yet. But also they're not going to be too tired. And this will allow them another time to relax before they go to bed. So I'd say spend 10 minutes, snack, reviewing the folder, go on Parent Square, go over anything that happened at school together. 10 to 20 minutes playing cool off time, 5 minutes to reset, get homework done, get homework set up, and move into whatever the next activity is. Peak and pit. So one thing that I really appreciate with reducing stress as well is having open conversations with kids. It is hard to get kids to talk, right? If you ask them directly, what did you do today? It's like, whoa, has anyone ever asked you, about your day, and suddenly it's like you've never lived a day in your life? It's such a direct question. So you can play games and get used to things that make these conversations a little bit easier. I'm a big fan of peak and pit or rose and thorn. And this is essentially saying like the peak or the rose, like the best part of your day, the pit or the thorn, the part of your day that hurt a little bit, maybe the worst part of your day or the part that was a little bit stressful, something like that. And process these things together, have those celebrations, and have those moments of reflecting. This is also a great way to jump in before stress builds up. If you're daily having these conversations with your kiddos, you might start to notice that it is every Thursday evening they're getting really anxious because on Friday they have a quiz. And this is when they might wake up Friday morning with a stomach ache or crying or anxious because of that quiz. And this is when we can jump in as the adults and help them process this stress, help them, in that outlet. Maybe they need help studying together. Just work with them to anticipate this. If you start to see repeated signs of stress, I would reach out to their teacher and say, hey, my child has been showing stress about this thing. Can you help me understand what happened? Or can you help me prepare them so they're not stressed in the future? Sometimes we have to go out there and advocate for our kids, let them know it's embarrassing, it's difficult to tell the teacher. They come to school, they forget about it, but then right before bed, they'll come and tell you. And I think it is really important to jump in and tell the teacher sometimes when you're seeing this, because this is when we can jump in and support them and give them maybe that extra little boost that they need. During these times, though, I would encourage you to be curious and not accusational. Try to not have them get in trouble during these times. Listen, sometimes they're going to tell you something that needs to be addressed. But during these conversation moments, I think it's really important to hold on to that space, be a trusted person, and not be overly reactive, because what we don't want is your kiddo to start feeling scared about things. Yes, they're going to get in trouble. I mean, it's not a perfect situation, but sometimes the natural consequences that come with this stress are punishment enough for kids, especially if they're getting to process and talk them through with somebody a little bit wiser. And just always want to remind you, guidance counselors are there for bigger problems. Please don't feel like you ever need to hide anything from the school or for the teacher. I often say kids in school and families with children in school are really lucky because you are connected to the community in a really close way. You are connected to people that have more connections and can get you support. So please don't ever feel like you need to keep anything secret from the school or private, because schools are incredible communities. We have so many resources, and we're here to help. So that's the end of our presentation. I want you to think right now, what is one thing that you can start doing with your child tomorrow to support them? We talked about a lot of things like tutor.com. We talked about this rose and thorn conversation, maybe that check-in with the teacher. What's one thing, maybe even right now, that you could do right at the end of this? And I want to thank you for watching this. Again, please keep in touch. You can find me on YouTube, Instagram, shoot me an email. We would love your feedback for this presentation. If you have any feedback at all, positive, negative, ways that it could be improved, please let us know with this QR code on the left. And one more time on the right, if you want those 4 easy emails to send to the teacher, you can find them right here at this QR code. Thank you again for watching. Don't be a stranger. Reach out if you have any questions or comments. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.